Today I'll be showing you how to rebuild your TRAXXAS Ultra shocks. Now I'm using my TRAXXAS Rustler XL5 on this, but most of TRAXXAS cars use these shocks besides like the Revo, the e-revo, and then a few other sport cars like the Nitro, Fortec, which use all the laydown shocks. But the Ultra shocks and big bore shocks are exactly the same besides a couple little tiny things like down here where the shock shaft goes up, there's a little cushion and it keeps it from smacking against the spring retainer. And also in the big bore shocks they have this little C-pin, I think is what they call it, and it just goes up there, and that's what holds in the little bushings inside the shock. But to take this shock off to rebuild it, you have to take off the tire right here and both of the screws that hold on the shock. Here's the tools that you need to rebuild your shock. You're going to need a screwdriver. This is to remove the shock. Now if you have hex on there, then you'll need a hex screwdriver like this one. And if the screw goes into a nut, you'll also need a little nut like this to remove the nut off the screw. You'll also need shock fluid, a tub to contain the old shock fluid in your shock right now. I like to use a paper towel or a rag to just make it so that it's not as messy. You're going to need your shock rebuild parts. Now what's broken on this is the shock shaft. I'm just going to go ahead and rebuild everything, which means all the bushings and bladder and everything like that. So here's what is inside the rebuild kit. It has all the washers, clips, and everything that you need, the bladder to rebuild it, and then shock shafts, and then of course the shock. Okay, now it's time we're going to go ahead and disassemble the shock. Step 1, we're going to take off the spring, get the retainer off the spring, pull it off the shock shaft. The spring should come out now, and sometimes this gets stuck on here, sometimes it doesn't. Just make sure it's on there and don't lose it. Alright, now we can actually rebuild the shock. This just unscrews, and there should be shock fluid in here. I don't know if there is because it has been leaking quite a bit because I bent the shock shaft and it's kind of spread apart all the spacers in it. So, okay, yeah, no shock fluid. See, all gone. No more. If there is shock fluid in there, you just dump it out somewhere in a safe spot. I like to use some lid off something, like a peanut butter lid or something. Just dump it in there for a safe place to keep all that stuff. Alright, so now we're going to get some pliers. Got to put that with the pile of tools that you need. And then this lower eyelet just should come off. And it just unscrews like that. Keep all your parts in a safe spot. And to get this out, it might be a little bit tricky. Might have to bend this just a little bit so that we can get it out. Alright, so what I had to do is take 2 pliers and just bend it back so that it's sort of straight. And you might be wondering, well, if you got it straight enough, why not just keep it in there? Well, because since I bent it back, it's a lot weaker now. So this can just easily bend. I probably could bend it with my fingers, but I don't want to do that. I could break the shock. So now we can just push this out, just like that. There's a shock body. Now here's a shock shaft. And to get this off, there's 2 little clips right here. One there and one on the other side. What we're going to have to do is take a really small screwdriver and just pick at it just so that it can come out. And the shock rebuild kit does include this, so you don't have to worry about it flying across the room and then have to go look for it again. Now when I'm talking about a small screwdriver, I really mean a small screwdriver. This is what I use to work on my micro helicopter, and this works good to get this out. So you just have to keep going around it. Make sure you don't hurt yourself with this because this is sharp since it's so small. You might have to try it a couple different times, a couple different ways to get this off. hate E-clips. Yes, I really hate them. They are such a booger. I had to get my even smaller screwdriver out and get into a little tiny groove and just sit there and kind of pry at it and just try to get it off. If you watch me, you think, why are you sewing? No, I'm just trying to get an E-clip off. Alright, so now we can throw this away, get our new E-clips out, and then start actually rebuilding. Alright, for the rest of the shock, this is a lower shock cap. It'll unscrew, just like that, and then there's a bunch of little bushings under there. And these can get dirty and crack and that kind of stuff. So let's take a small screwdriver and just get these out. These do come in the shock rebuild kit, so you don't have to worry about losing these either. Now you want to remember which order you get these out in, because there's a soft blue one, a hard black plastic one, and then another soft blue one. Now in the kit, it does include the blue ones, but I do think that TRAXXAS make white ones for I don't know what reason. Alright, so let's go ahead and put these over to the side and get the new ones. Remember which order it comes in. The blue one, the hard plastic black one, and then another blue one. Just like that. And now we can screw the cap back on. Make sure it's nice and tight. You don't want any shock fluid to leak out of there. And that's the shock body. Now we can move on to the new shock shaft. And we'll have to take the piston, put that on there, and then get two E-clips and put those back on. Finally, I got it on. It only took about half an hour or so. Finally got it on. Lost about 4 of the E-clips just trying to get them on. And I'm down to 2 now. Look at that. Anyways, we can now go ahead and put the shock shaft down back in. You want to be sure, or you want to be careful not to go fast with this, because you can tear up the little bushings down there. Alright, there we go. Nice and smooth. Okay, so now we can get our shock fluid. It doesn't matter what shock fluid you use, what weight it is at least. Right now I'm just going to throw 30 weight in there, and you want to make sure that you don't overfill it. Ooh, there we go, that's perfect. Huh, plenty on shock fluid, gonna need some more. Alright, so let's go ahead and get the new bladders, set it on top there. And when you screw this on, a little bit might squirt out while you're doing this. Okay, so now the shock has filled all the way. Make sure that this is tightened down. Now we can get the pliers. And now since this is a new shock shaft, you want to be careful so that you don't scrape it, because that will scratch it up and it won't be as smooth. So now let's get the eyelet, screw it on, make sure it goes on there straight. Alrighty, now this you don't want to be tight, just hand tight, and not even that really. Alright, so now just make sure it works. Okay, alright, it is now good to go. Let's go ahead and get the springs back on. Make sure that the upper retainer is on there. Slide it up, just pull the spring back, and get this, slide it on there, push it down onto the eyelet, and then line up the spring on there, and there we go. Now all that's left to do is put it on my car, and then that is how you rebuild a shock. Thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe if you like my videos, and or like the thumbs up button down below. Anyways, thanks for watching. See you next time.